Hey everyone. So I am back again with Anjali Misra, and I just want to say that, we were going about a good 2+ hours. So if you had survived through the first 2 hours, we thank you very much for staying in and tuning in. And I hope that this has been a good way to, decompress from all the wild, unpredictable, crazy crap we've been putting up with in America right now, and also what's been going on globally. So I hope that this serves as a good escape, a temporary escape for the moment, before we have to find ways to navigate our own care. So I hope that you are doing your best to navigate and give yourself a lot of grace in this very challenging time. And so we left off at number 18, Summer Boy, Lady Gaga. I it was this was a peculiar pick for me because there's obviously so many Lady Gaga songs that I could really pick from, whether it's Poker Face, Telephone, Alejandro, um, the songs from her last album. But I chose Summer Boy because one, it's underlooked. It came from the first album, and I felt like it was so forgotten until she brought it back to the Mayhem tour a couple months ago. And I can't tell you that my old 20-something-year-old self was so excited when I heard that song live. And I mean, there's something that's very special when you see an artist that have a long catalog, and then next thing you know, they play a song that you haven't heard in like live in so many years. And there's something special about that nostalgia. So interestingly enough about that beginning of Lady Gaga era when she came out around 2008, she opened up for Pussycat Dolls. She even opened up for New Kids on the Block. Isn't that
Wow.
something? It's just weird. The New Kids on the Block, I can't like put my finger around that one because New Kids on the Block by that point were already into their legacy act, the reunion, and now they're probably playing in some, small theater show, or, you know, connected with other oldies acts. But Lady Gaga, like, this is before stardom. This is before her name became like an um everyday common name in pop culture. So yeah, what are your thoughts about Lady Gaga's legacy? But also, what do you remember about Lady Gaga when she first came out? And how do you feel about her music over the last 15, 16 years?
Yeah, I just like so appreciate you digging up this like you said, it's sort of a deep cut. It's sort of
Mhm.
this underappreciated gem
Mhm.
from her whole body of work. And so yeah, I was like when I saw this on your list, I felt especially like, oh yeah, this is like an underrated song. And
Mhm.
wow, it brought me back because I remember being like she was on like one of those like tiny like 11 a.m. stages at Lollapalooza
Oh
in
yes.
2008. And like, had to do her own costuming and her own
Mhm.
like makeup and her own like hair and choreography. I wasn't at her particular, I was at Lala in 2008, but I wasn't at her like particular
Mhm.
performance. But I remember like seeing her on the list and being like, oh wow, this like underground like club girl is
Mhm.
like making her way. Wow, good for her. And
Mhm.
now fast forward, like whatever, like
Mhm.
18 plus years, it's like, wow, oh my God, like everything's changed.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like this like really like Summer Boy takes me back to like early Lady Gaga. And I don't know, I think because like I feel like in a lot of ways, like those early 2000, like late 90s, early 2000s like pop divas, because I grew up with them, I have like this maybe misplaced, but like weird sense of like sisterhood with them, where I'm like, oh, I grew up with them. And
Mhm.
so like seeing their highs and lows and like seeing their shit in the tabloids and seeing like, just like their like live foibles and interviews gone wrong, interviews gone well. Um I don't know, for better or worse, like I grew up with these people. Like I grew up with Lady Gaga.
Mhm, mhm,
And so, yeah, I don't know, it feels like upon reflection, like seeing her career where it's at now, I feel like a lot of like I'm proud of her, you know?
mhm,
Like it could have gone so many different ways, right?
mhm,
Could have gone sideways.
mhm,
And certainly like as humans, like we like have our tragedies, we have our like personal dramas and things like that. But when you are a pop icon, it's all on display. So for her, I think she has like weathered it with a lot of grace. And you know, whether that is a testament to, I think it's a combination of things, right? It's a combination of like her being like a grounded person and like maybe like surrounding herself with like really good people. Um, and also like being lucky, quite
mhm.
frankly,
Yeah.
to be surrounded by good people because you could be like Britney and
Mhm,
like not be surrounded by good people just because
mhm,
like that's your family and like you can't choose your family and that kind of thing. And so yeah, I think about that a lot when it comes to Lady Gaga of like, you know, you are special, you're talented, but in a lot of ways it was a combination of like talent, luck, and
mhm.
timing. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I this was really my first t official time seeing Lady Gaga like last year with the Man Bar. It was such a phenomenal show. I mean, I think that I get very particular when it comes to seeing live performers, and she fits the bill along with the Beyoncés, the Madonnas of the world that not only have like a long catalog, but can really that really know how to turn an arena stadium show, like use
mhm.
every inch of it, thinking about the spectacle of nature of it all,
Yeah.
and while not losing the intimacy with the fans, just which Gaga's known to do. She tries to be very personable, which is a very hard thing to do these days, especially in
Mhm.
this day and age, when you see Chaperone pushing back hard about the fame, when you look at Britney Spears and the consequences that she's had to deal with. Um, I say like to me, she's like one of the few uh current pop stars that are still elevating their game and
Right.
keeping themselves very current. And she's gonna be a fixture for in the many years to come, and when she hits the legacy circuit era of her career. So yeah, let's go to the next one.
Great.
So 19 would be Losing You by Solange. Now, Solange has always been kind of an enigma, musically speaking. She's always been kind of under the surface, has to live under the shadow of Beyonce, her famous older sister. But, Solange over the years has become a very highly credible indie artist and has made some incredible albums, even though it's been kind of a while since she's released any new music. But Losing You, to me, this goes back to like 2012, I believe, and even though the lyrics are very sad and it's about a breakup, it is such an upbeat, uplifting song, and it's one of the few uplifting, upbeat or up-tempo Solange songs because most of her songs are very chill. It's very neo soul. It's but every time I would hear that song, this gets played up on my radio, in my car stereo, like to a 10, and it's such a joyful song for me to like to really take in, and yeah, I feel like Solange is one of those artists that is severely underlooked in terms of what she has really put out artistically, but also at the same time she has proven that she can step outside of her shadow, outside of her own sister's shadow. So there's a lot to be said that she is in her own lane and
Yeah.
that she does not feel like she has to like rely on her older sister to carry her. Like I think Solange is a person that really stands on her own. And this song itself is a masterpiece. And the music video is is beautifully done. I have seen the live performances of that song, and boy, her dancing and the way she's in sync with her band. Yeah, I love it, all of it.
Yeah, I had no notes on this choice
Mhm.
and the list. I was like, I like have my notes in front of me, and all I put was agreed, great, because I just feel the same way. Like I think that this is yeah a really standout song from her. Her whole body of work is so um I don't know. There's almost a freedom in being like in the shadow of like someone in your family who is more famous than you.
Hmm.
Like I feel like she had then the creative freedom to do a lot of things that like maybe Beyonce couldn't do.
Hmm.
And she took that and ran with it. And so, I think about like I hate to say this, but yeah, I do love Solange's work more than
You're not the only
Beyonce's.
one. Oh, you're not the only
Yeah.
one that said that.
Yeah. And so yeah, I just feel like again, we can't control like our birth order or whatever, like anything like that. I'm a little sister, so like I also feel a lot of affinity for Solange, like constantly being compared to like your older sibling or like, you
Yeah.
know, like we didn't choose it. And I love my sister and like we have a very close relationship, but it's something to be said about like how Solange like you know, because I'm thinking about like you see these like videos online, right? Of like
Hmm.
um the the Knowles family like doing choreography in the living room,
Hmm.
and they're always like Solange and Beyonce having to do choreography together, and like Solange is littler than Beyonce, so
Hmm.
like she's not as her brain is still developing, so she's not as like able to like do the choreography as well. And so yeah, I just think about like if you're growing up and like watching your older sister like join Destiny's Child, become a fucking global sensation, and then you yourself are like, well, I want to be an artist. Like, what does that look like for her?
Hmm.
And so I think that like she brought as much grace and humility as she could
Hmm.
to her craft. And I don't know, man. I hate to say it, but I feel like I respect Solange more than I respect Beyonce.
No, I mean, I'm not gonna let the beehive attack you like that, but honestly, I think that this is a person who has really cemented herself, especially in her lane and what she has done, what she has contributed, and also like when I think of sibling rivalry, I think of Janet and Michael Jackson, and when I think of Janet, like I haven't said it very often, but I really do believe she's a better dancer than her brother. I know that people will, you know, have their pitchforks right now as we speak, especially with the Michael Jackson movie coming out. But I feel like that with Janice, she puts in more effort into her choreography. Michael's is more memorable, but Janet's a lot on technicality. It's incredibly difficult to master. I mean, how can you master Rhythm Nation? How can you master the If choreography? How can you master a lot of the wild techniques that she has put up for years. So
Yeah,
yes, and
yeah,
also I prefer her discography a lot more than her brother, which not everyone's gonna like that opinion, but I hold to that. So, but nothing
yeah.
wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it.
Here we are.
Yeah, and the next one would be Humble by Kendrick Lamar.
Hmm.
Now talk about a banger. Talk about raising the volume up. And, Kendrick, for the past 15, 16 years has really been one of the most respected and critically acclaimed MCs. I mean, there are old heads that have, said that, well, he's not on the level of Tupac nor Notorious B.I.G. or some of those folks. And you know what? it's hard to compare that, especially since Tupac and Notorious B.I.G. Died very early in their career. But for Kendrick, fortunately for all of us, he is still here and he's still thriving. Um, like when when people think of Kendrick Lamar, they think of his beef with Drake and his infamous "Not Like Us" song, which, has won many awards and probably put the nail in Drake's coffin at this time, unless Drake comes out as a vampire and tries to stay alive, which I hope he stays in that coffin. Um, and but when I think of Humbo, yeah, I mean, I remember Kelly Clarkson did a really good cover of that too, and I was like, man, she's got some rhythm on this one too,
Oh, I have to hear that.
Because
Wow, I did not know.
she's always about the karaoke. She's really good at karaokeing people's songs, and I'm like, okay, that's a credit. But she was also an American Idol winner, so that hits. Um, but Kendrick has made some very socially conscious music over the years, and oftentimes has been overlooked by the Grammys, especially for the big awards until the most recent album cycle. And I feel like he's now getting his full dues. He's performed on the Super Bowl halftime show once, but twice actually, um,
Mhm.
and I've learned that Humbo, this came out under the album Damn in 2017. It was a number one charting single in the Billboard Top 100. Fun fact, that beat was actually originally made for Gucci Mane, and Kendrick decided to keep it. And I'm like, wow, I cannot believe that this music was about to go to Gucci Mane of all people. And I'm so glad that Kendrick kept it and knew what to do with that song.
Yeah, wow. That's surprising to hear. Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, I agree. So for me, Kendrick is someone who there were like too many top singles to choose from for like my personal whatever, like of the century, like top Kendrick songs. I'm glad you included this one. Um, it is in my like top 10 best Kendrick songs. Like no doubt, no dispute there at all. It's an obvious standout single. Um, Obviously accolades, Billboard charting, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and yeah, I just think that I don't know. He is someone who, yeah, I'm glad, like you said, I think you really hit the nail on the head by saying, like, we've had a lot of these, like, legends, like, come and go.
Hmm.
And to say that, like, we've had Kendrick for so long, like, that's something to be said, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and, like, he's part of this legacy and, like, this ancestry of hip hop and rap. And, like, um, I'm thinking about like how there was like the 50th anniversary of hip hop that was commemorated at the Super Bowl. Was it like 2 years ago or like a year ago?
About 4 years ago, I think now. I mean,
Oh, maybe more than that.
yeah,
I don't.
yeah.
What is time?
I
I have no
know,
sense
I
of
know.
time. But yeah, like that was a really special moment where I was like, damn, like I've been alive 37 years and like I've like watched this progression of like
Yeah.
this industry and this genre of music coming up and like hearing like 90s rap growing up and then like sort of like yeah the evolution of like early 2000s and then like seeing Kendrick come up and like I don't know, it feels special to be like a part of that and
Hmm.
to be like a listener and a fan and um yeah, I also part of me feels a little bit like sad that like the feuds continue,
Hmm.
like I think I understand. I actually have been thinking a lot about this recently about the fact that like these feuds exist for a reason.
Hmm.
I think part of it is a way to um air out grievances that otherwise would be co-opted and like
Hmm.
what's the word? Um tucked under the rug by
Hmm.
white supremacist capitalist
Hmm.
bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Because like at the end of the day, these record labels are owned by like these white capitalists and have been for the last like 50 years
Hmm.
or more. And so I was watching like the Diddy documentary, and I
Yeah.
was watching about how like you know folks got bought out and folks got like undermined by these like massive record labels, and it created this very volatile culture where a lot of bad behavior was excused, and certain bad behavior was excused and certain bad behavior was punished.
Hmm.
And I feel like if you fast forward whatever 30, 40 years to now, like I feel like newer younger rappers are not like allowing that to happen.
Hmm.
Like to a certain extent they're like, no, we're going to air our grievances in public, and like we're not going to let people, yeah, we're going to be like a little bit realer
Mm.
about what's happening behind the scenes. So I don't know. I don't know if I that's like a good take or a bad take. I don't know. That's
No.
that's my take. So yeah.
Yeah, and I
I
think
will just say like I'm proud of Kendrick Lamar.
yeah, I mean, I'm really glad that he, especially since like the like where hip hop is now, like I feel like he's been really carrying that torch.
Yeah.
And I don't really see too many people that are come up and coming. I mean, I could be very wrong. Maybe it's me being like an old head that has kind of been stuck in the era in the past. But I feel like, his name comes up so often. I mean, I got to see his tour with SZA last year, and it was such a beautiful spectacle. I don't really attend many hip hop concerts, let alone in arenas,
Mhm.
or stadiums, I should say. It was at Soldier Field, and you know, like it's not common for hip hop artists to like perform in that size of an arena because
Yeah.
of what it requires, and also the staging, and like when you're performing in an arena, you got to have like all the bells and whistles, and but it was done really well. I mean, really enjoyed it. And yeah, let's go to the next one. Another hip hop, uh, another hip hop legend, Outkast. I chose the song Roses, which came from the Speaker Box Love Below album in 2003. This song had Hey I Like the Way You Move. And this was also a double solo album that Andre 3000 and Big Boy made on their own, but combined it as a double album. And this album has been like such a pop cultural phenomenon. I mean, you see the turn that Outkast was making with their music, with each progression, specifically with Andre 3000, where he was becoming more uh, tapping into his different curiosities. He's a fellow Gemini, and he has been a person that has never been afraid to really be bold, artistically, and also what he does with his fashion statements, his creative side projects he's been working on. Um, Outkast has been away from, touring and from making music for well over a decade. And, Andre 3000 came back with his flute album like about 2 years ago. I fortunately was able to meet him in person for a Q&A when he was promoting his jazz or his flute album, I should say. And I saw a very different Andre 3000 who was very introspective, cerebral, incredibly thoughtful. I asked him like two questions. I know one of them was about his creativity and how does he find inspiration to tap into it. And like he said, like, yeah, like anywhere I touch, anywhere I go, I feel like there's something that I need to tap into, like that there's curiosity that I need to look after. And this is a person who's very unconcerned about what his old fans think. He's very unconcerned about what his peers think. A lot of his own hip hop peers were pretty much confused by his decision to do a flute album and then followed by a piano album, and like, are you ever gonna come back to MC? And I think that that really tells you about his own progression. He's a person's about to be who was on his way to being 50 years old, and we were talking about how there are hip hop artists that have unfortunately died well before they were even 40. I mean, besides Tupac and Notorious B.I.G., you think about Nipsey Hussle, you think of other hip hop artists that have died very early, and Andre 3000, I feel like has a whole different like um a different pivot in his life that's quite something to behold. But when we get back to the song Roses, like Heyo was overplayed. I mean, this song was like crossing over like beyond just the hip hop station. Actually, a lot of hip hop stations didn't care for that song, but pop and even rock stations were picking that song up, and it was like a global smash hit that
Yeah.
you really couldn't get away from. And um, but Roses was a song that I felt like was underlooked. It was one of the last like real collaborations, like last real hits that Outkast had together. And it's a song that's about, being jilted, being jilted by a lover. It has some misogynistic elements to it. Let's just be very fair here. But yeah, I mean, I love the video. Paula Abdul like played the choreographer in that music video, and it is one of my favorite karaoke songs to sing these days. Um,
Nice.
and Big Boy on the other hand, he's an Aquarius, and he's a cultural entrepreneur. He recently, joined a tour with Kid Cudi. So in Outkast, they became I think they were in the Hall of Fame as of last year. So right now, like, do you think Outkast will ever come back to make music or to tour again? Personally, as a fan, I would love to see that. I wish I got to see them perform like in 2014 when I had the chance. But you never know. But I get the vibe that, Andre 3000 is like in a different lane in his life. And I think Big Boy, respectively, is doing other things, to fill his time and fill his creativity. So, yeah, what are your thoughts about Outkast, over the years? And how have you looked at their music, you know, for the past 15, 20 years?
Yeah, yeah, no, I agreed, would love to see them do any kind of reunion, any kind of touring. You know, grew up listening to their music and totally like agree, like they totally earned the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. I watched the induction ceremony and it was like really fucking cool, like really powerful, quite frankly, because they're like pioneers of the genre and they're so talented. Like Big Boy and Andre 3000, like super fucking talented.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, just have admired their work like all of my life, and as like an avid music fan. Um, and yeah, I get where they're at, like whatever, creatively. I think that like because I follow them, like,
Hmm.
on social media, um, I think that like they're at a place where uh they're doing their own thing. Like Big Boy is, he's producing, he's been producing all this time, but
Hmm.
um is like more committed to that. And then like, Andre has all of these like other projects and like productions that he's a part of in projects. Um and so I respect that. I think like again, it's this like millennial nostalgia in me that's
Hmm.
like, oh, I would love to see a
Hmm.
reunion tour and like selfishly.
Hmm.
But I've also had like bad experiences with things like that where
Mm.
I saw Bob Dylan when I was a teenager.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. You get it. You
I
totally
have never
100.
seen
I
him, but
didn't
a lot of people have complained about him. Like he'll go on for 3 hours and just kind of mumble and jumble for like that long, and you don't even know where this is going. But I'm curious about your experience with Bob Dylan as a teenager of all things.
You just said it, Randy. Like,
Oh.
yeah, that was the experience. I had all of this built up anticipation and optimism and like, oh, this is going to be this like watershed moment for me as a young person who like, like I dabbled in like playing guitar
Hmm.
and like songwriting, and I have grown up like singing all like as a hobby all of my life. And so as a teen, I was like, and like I took my little brother, like
Oh my
we
gosh.
like, because he played Summerfest in Milwaukee,
Oh,
and
uh-huh.
like that's where we grew up. So I was like, oh, we're gonna go, and it's gonna be this incredible, like whatever, like coming of age experience. It was not. It was
Wow.
like, yeah, it was really again the mumbling and the like incoherent. We didn't know what song we were listening to until like halfway through the song.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how bad he was. And at
He
the
probably
time, he
wasn't he
was
probably wasn't making any eye contact with the audience. He does not strike me as a person who likes to engage at
no,
all.
he was in his 70s at the time, and now he's in his 80s. And so, like, God forbid, we don't even know where he's at. And he's still performing, which is weird. But anyway,
Hmm.
so that like scarred me for life from seeing my heroes.
Oh dear.
So now I'm like, do I need to see Outcast? I love them. I've loved them all my life. Let's leave it at that. Let me not
Mhm.
have things ruined by potentially seeing them live and being disappointed.
What I would end up doing is like I like in these cases like I would like to see how the tour is going before I'd be like, okay, I'll throw down, be
There
like,
you
okay,
go.
I will watch carefully. I will watch what people are saying. I will watch YouTube clips just to kind of get an idea of what I'm getting because yeah, I have seen like, sometimes I've been mesmerized by a lot of our Millennium nostalgia acts that are
Yeah.
reuniting. As much as I cannot stand, Brian and Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys, which they're two really awful human beings,
Yep.
which I will not get into. But
That's another
yes,
episode.
yes, and like the back, like look, but they are having their phenomenon, with
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
with the reunion tour in Las Vegas at the Sphere, but.
Yeah.
But then you look at, say, um, 98 Degrees for one example, and I don't know if you
Hmm.
had seen that it's pretty cringe. It's a whole nother cringe level. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, this is really bad,
Yeah.
and I don't know if I could sit through this. To watch like some of your own favorite acts not be able to grace the stage like they used to. And I think that there's some grace to that we should give. Like, look, a person in their 50s or 60s are not going to perform what they were in their 20s or 30s.
Of course.
However, like there is a sense of like, okay, well, what kind of show are you going to put on? Is it going to be more personable? I have seen many older acts. I mean, Paul McCartney, performed like nearly 3 hours, like a couple months ago when I saw him, and
Yeah.
and still as charming and affable as ever. Like he is very talkative, and my God, he didn't even take a break. Um, which
Wow.
amazes me. Paul Simon came out of retirement. I mean, he has a hearing problem, and he's deaf in one ear now, and
Mm.
but he's also the same age as Paul McCartney. He's in his 80s, and it was a beautiful acoustic set and a very heartfelt set that he made. And then I look at Janet and Madonna, their choreography isn't what they used to be, but they could
Sure.
still put on a very fascinating show. They can bring on a lot of nostalgia to the like songs that we haven't heard in a while, and bring more excitement, bring new life to these songs. So,
Yeah.
you know, but then there's those like, Mariah Carey is a person that I love watching, but I don't know if I could see her tour. Like, I think that she's really been struggling, and also I feel like she doesn't need to at this stage. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like you have to kind of weigh and see where they're at in their
Yeah.
career, and also how our fans looking at it before you be like, okay, I'm gonna invest like $200, spend this night, and watch them perform for better or for worse. Um,
Yep.
yeah. So next one, Toxicity by System of a Down. You know. I never thought I would be into System of a Down coming out of high school. And I was entering college in 2001 when I saw the video to Toxicity on MTV. And I was so mesmerized by that video. I mean, Serge Tankian, the lead singer, the lead front man, was like he had this devilish stare in his eyes, and it's like that was something that I had was so fixated on when I would see that video, and it was something that I had never heard before, you know, like like the intense, like it goes from a very slow ballad, you know, very singy songy, and like next thing you know it goes into this like furious like 20-second run, and then it gets slows down for like another 30 seconds, and it's unpredictable. It's very energetic, it's political, it's the kind of music that I have always respected from them. I think System of a Down, um, you know, comes from a very anti-genocide voice for many years, specifically since you know, Serge's ancestors were, you know, victims of the Armenian genocide over 100 years ago, and this is something that their music that they would bring out time and time again.
Mhm.
Um, I saw System of a Down last summer for the reunion tour, and you know, a lot of people were commenting about how Serge's voice has really grown weaker by the years
Mhm.
because of the intensity of his voice that, you know, that has now kind of like been strained over the years of touring and the kind of music that he does, and getting older too. But it was still just as entertaining. It was still just as fun. I mean, luckily, I was not on the floor because, you know, being on the floor of a System of a Down show is something I would never go anywhere near.
I know, I'm too old.
It's horrifyingly scary. I don't think I could ever do that. I mean, I would look at these videos. I'm like, absolutely not. So I was in the seats. I was perfectly up in the seats, and it was fun. It was safe for me that way. But then, you know, they have t like some of the members have really taken a turn. One of their drummer, apparently is a MAGA, and then his second guy, Darren, um, you know, who also plays like, you know, the backing vocals.
Yeah.
He kind of went on a tirade against a couple of his fans on Instagram, like over the Charlie Kirk, and he called himself the far middle, and he was like really fighting with his fans about it. And I'm like, what the hell do you mean far middle? And like Surge has been like, you know, the only one that I think is still, I guess, political on the left side, but I don't know what happened. I really don't understand what happened to them to make this kind of a pivot, you know? Like their music, their fan base, you know, is very progressive. Their
Yeah.
messaging, anti-genocide, I mean, Serge has been, you know, pro-Palestine in the past. So
Mhm.
I wonder how Serge must be feeling now with this with his band because like, you know, his drummer is married to his sister. So I bet that there were some interesting dinner conversations, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I
in-laws.
yeah,
Wow.
I mean, I know that Serge has never been interested in like reuniting over the years. Maybe that's why. I mean, again, I don't want to speculate, but I kind of wonder um what the future looks like for that band, especially when there is some very strong political divisions. Like, I mean, this is not the first band that's gone through something like that. Pink Floyd is another one too, you know, like
Mm.
Roger Waters, you know, has a famous fight with David Gilmour, and Roger Waters is famously political and
Mhm.
also pro-Palestine in his work too. Um,
Wow.
so yeah. Thoughts on System of a Down?
Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, do you mind if we take a quick break? I have to
Yes,
refill my water and I
sure.
have a lot of, I want to gather my thoughts because I have a lot to
Yes.
say.
Yes, and I think it was also culture shock, like shock there too that I just gave you.
Yeah, yeah,
All right,
yeah.
but yeah, like, what are your thoughts about System of a Down? And I know you're processing this shock as I'm telling you about the political turn of some of its members.
Yeah, unfortunate to hear
Hmm.
that members of this band who I think like again, like I grew up listening to and like feeling very um attached to like their outspoken progressive politics and like quite frankly like their radical politics, hearing that they're whatever, for whatever reason, like folks have taken a turn, is like frustrating and disappointing to say the very least. I think that, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, like as a teen, definitely listened to this album. That I forget the name of the, I think that was the album called Toxicity or whatever the
No, it
album.
was um I know I keep thinking it's Chop Suey, but I keep thinking it's Chop Suey, but gosh, let me look this up because I'm drawing a blank at the moment and I feel like really should know this, especially since I also listened to them quite a bit in the
Yeah.
past. Let's see. No, da, 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 da.
Okay.
Oh, it's actually Toxicity. You are correct. It is Toxicity,
Okay.
2001. They had a debut album in 1998 and which is their self-titled.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm like trying to like piece my past together as we're
Mhm.
talking. But in 2001, I was a 12-year-old kid. I was in middle
Mhm.
school. Um, Fucking 9/11 happened.
Mhm.
It was like the Bush administration.
Mhm.
I was like a brown kid in a predominantly white, um, literally like 99.9% white,
Wow.
conservative, Christian,
My goodness.
borderline rural suburban neighborhood in like Wisconsin.
Wow.
And so the only outlet, and then the like this was pre, like this was like the dawning of the internet, and so
Mhm.
there was
Mhm.
no like social media and there were no
Mhm.
cell phones, and so like the only way you like knew about what was happening in the world was like through cable TV.
Mhm.
um and the things I was seeing on TV was like the war in Iraq and
Mhm.
like George W. Bush, like, being Islamophobic and like
Mhm.
everyone being Islamophobic and
Mhm.
anti-brown and anti-black. And
Mhm.
so the antithesis to that was like MTV.
Mhm.
And System of a Down was on MTV being like these like really unruly brown people, um, you know, spouting these progressive and like radical and anti-genocidal like messages. And so that was like my entree to radicalization. Like System of a
Mhm.
Down was like my entree to like progressive politics. And so like I don't know, I carry that with me like now in my like late 30s. Um
Mhm.
and so I have a lot of like, I don't know, nostalgia for that. And then
Mhm.
like also a little bit of disappointment, that like as the years went on, I became more radical. And it
Mhm.
seems like my heroes became de radicalized.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, so that feels shitty. That feels shitty, to be real.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that too. Because like 2001, I was an 18-year-old. Like I
Mhm,
felt like I was entering into adulthood when 9/11 happened and the George Bush years started to, add up. And I felt like I was in this world of uncertainty as a young 18-year-old, trying to
mhm,
figure his place out in the world. And also growing up around a predominantly white community, not as, super white as the community that you grew up in, but it was pretty conservative. And I have always felt like I've always had to hold back, uh, or hold back on the curiosity that I have about the identities that I was not quite comfortable disclosing. Um,
mhm.
what is my queer identity, my Asian brown identity. Um, and like at that time, my music list was like I was listening to a lot of B96, which was like a pop top 40 radio station, and I was really into, the R&B and hip hop, like the Ashantis, and listening to Missy Elliott. But
Yep.
System of a Down was probably one of the very few rock acts that really got my attention during that particular period of time. And for years, I was always mesmerized by their catalog and their presence and what they stand for. And yeah, to your point, like I think that there is a lot of disappointment. Like this past year, I feel like I've had to do an audit of the people that I've enjoyed listening to over the years, who I consider to be, I guess, quote unquote heroes, and how much I have to like really divest away from the celebrity culture of it all, you know? Like where do I want to put my energy towards? Like is it like as we were talking about Beyonce earlier, like, previously, like is it worth spending $500 for a ticket or like $100 or $130 on a hoodie? Is it is it really does it really make sense to like invest in people who really don't have our best interests at heart, especially when there's communities that are really getting eliminated? So
Mhm.
I think that, yeah, there's been a lot of artists this past year that have really disappointed me that I've had to scale back on. And I think it's kind of making me think, especially now that I'm in my 40s, like, okay, I feel like maybe I'm old enough for this, like I kind of need to get past this period and start to, be more pragmatic about my own taste and my own viewpoints of how I view these artists, and view like people that are considered heroes, like we're dealing with it now with the Cesar Chavez aftermath and how we reckon with, his legacy now. And so I think this is definitely a continuing conversation, and I wonder what the future of System of a Down looks like moving forward. Are they going to continue performing as a band at this rate, or is Serge going to continue working on his solo efforts? Time will tell, but I think right now, like, some of the political turns have been shocking and unfortunately very disappointing. I guess maybe not as shocking as think about it. Um, so
Yeah.
let's go to the next one. I
Cool.
chose Stay by Rihanna. Finally we have Rihanna's song, and you know, this song I feel like has started to become forgotten over the years, even though this song was a huge hit in 2012. This came from the Unapologetic album, which, followed right after the song Diamonds, which was a huge smash hit and one of her signature songs. She played this at the opener of her Anti tour, which is a peculiar choice to start out that song because it is a very heartfelt, vulnerable, and soulful ballad. Prior to Anti, the album, like this particular album and that song was showing the continuing confidence and the maturation of her voice. You know, Back in 2005, she entered the scene as a bright-eyed teenager, working under Jay-Z's mentorship, through the Pandey replay, and then went through um, the Chris Brown situation that turned very public and violent, and that was something that she had to reckon with as a young woman, now in the media and now in the tabloids, and then now coming out of coming out of that experience is when she started to really emerge creatively. Like, she started to like change her hair color to the red hair, like in 2010. She started making more songs with deeper meaning that felt more like her, and she started becoming more confident in her own presence, in her own wardrobe, in her own identity, and there was an unwavering confidence about her. But this particular song, like you could really tell, like she was really starting to become more vulnerable in her music. And I mean, I look back with that song "Stay," which she performed with Miko, I believe. I could be wrong with the pronunciation, Michael or Miko, um,
Hmm.
but it is such an enduring hit. It's such an enduring song, and it's incredibly, incredibly beautifully done.
Yeah. I have so many feelings about this.
Uh-huh.
um, yeah, your inclusion of this song. So, again, my note on this, like inclusion of Stay Rihanna's song, like I in all caps was like agreed.
Hmm.
Like this is the song of hers of the century. Um, yeah, and I don't know. I was just Googling really quickly about like her era and like the
Hmm
time that this song came out. Um, yeah, 2012 was wild,
hmm
right? Like so much was happening. Um,
hmm She was at the peak. She was at the prime. She was entering the prime of her musical career.
yeah. And I almost feel like was she a little bit like sabotaged by
Mm.
everything that was going on with her personally? Because obviously like she has blossomed and like her career
Mhm.
has like gone on year after year. And now fast forward 14 years later, she's doing great.
hmm
Like no doubt.
Financially. Oh yeah, financially, yeah, she's not hurting.
Yeah, she's not hurting. Um, but I do think that yeah, this was an era in her career where I was like, again, this is an artist I grew up with, and
Hmm
so I've like loved her music all of my life. Um, but I'm like more putting myself in the place of where I was at when I was listening to her
hmm
music at that time, and yeah, it felt very like I felt for her.
hmm
I really felt for her at that time. I was in grad school when this album
hmm
came out, and I was doing my gender studies
hmm
degree.
hmm
I was doing my master's, my graduate degree in gender studies. And so this album came out, she was on tour, this whole like horrible shit with Chris Brown came out.
hmm
And I actually ended up writing an op-ed in the school newspaper, like at my university,
hmm
about um, how she made the choice to like release like footage or like photos of
hmm
like the post
hmm
encounter with
hmm
Chris. Like I think they had a fight in a car or something like that, or like it was like a semi-public
Yeah.
encounter. And
hmm
so she was like, yeah, like I'm pressing charges. Um and I was like in my early 20s, so
hmm
I don't know. I like wrote an op-ed for the school newspaper. It got published and it got like a lot of backlash
hmm
actually, which is like weird. And I don't know, I'm like maybe still
hmm
reckoning with that
hmm
because the internet is forever. So like you
hmm
can probably find it. I haven't
hmm
searched it in like all these years, but I remember writing like, oh, people like Chris Brown are like an endemic, and like people like Chris Brown are a symptom of like a like this culture, and like there can
hmm
be no rehabilitation. And
hmm
then like I feel like people in the comments came at me again. This
hmm
is like at my fucking college in Wisconsin. So it's
Okay,
not
yeah.
like it wasn't like a national thing at all.
No.
But yeah, like it stayed with me all these years.
hmm
And so when I think about Rihanna and like when I hear Rihanna's music, I think about like this moment in my life where I was like, oh, I want to come to the defense of someone who is like this really like powerful figure and this really like creative artist who whatever like had this like very
hmm
like public bad relationship, and I as like this student of like I don't know social work, gender,
hmm
sociology was
hmm
like this is my observation of what's happening in the culture. And then like I don't know, it feels very it feels very weird.
hmm
Like
hmm hmm
yeah, it feels very much like yeah, I don't know what to say about
Yeah.
it other than that.
Yeah, like when I think about that 2012 era, I mean, I feel like this is like
Mhm,
where you really start to see Rihanna become more assertive. She started to become
mhm,
more clear about what she wanted, and when, media started to come after her, and she was still dealing with the Chris Brown fallout for a couple of years, and and I think that this is where she started to become like, okay, I'm going to push back, and I think I felt like she was entering the way Madonna and Beyonce were starting to like really establish themselves and be like, look, I have boundaries, and this is what you're gonna
Mhm.
ask me, this is what you're not gonna tell me what to do. And then she released the Anti album, which came after a few years of taking a break because for a while she was releasing year after year like new albums, and the anti-album in a way was kind of like this masterpiece, and I felt like Stay was kind of this inspiration for her slower, her ballads, and where she was testing out her voice, and when she was really starting to become more confident in what she can use it for. And since then, we're now 10 years since Anti, and like it's hard to believe that we've gone a decade without a Rihanna album. And I don't think that there's any chance that that will happen anytime soon in the next 5 years. I would like there to be one, but I also feel like she's in a different lane in her life with her
Yeah.
Fenty and her Savage X business, and also as a mom too,
Yeah.
right now. And yeah, so it's wild. 10 years later, it's like it's like there's like I think the fans are starting to like okay, be like okay, you know what, we may not get this album ever, and I think a lot of us are starting to make peace with it. I think that's fine.
Mhm.
Um, it's whatever, but I think she's got such a good discography, a good catalog of songs that are going to remain timeless for a really long time. And people still listen to her music. I mean, um, like Diamonds, uh, like We Found Love, um, Umbrella, which honestly I can't really stand the song unless it's that Tom Holland video, then I'll watch it.
Sure, 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 sure.
Yeah, but yeah, there's so many great singles,
Yeah.
and yeah, I hope that she comes back touring at some point
Yeah.
down the road because I mean I was lucky enough to see that tour with my good friend, um,
Oh,
and it was fun to watch,
that's
and
great.
yeah, so
Oh, I was
next,
just gonna say, feel
go ahead.
free to cut anything.
Oh.
Like, I don't know what your like editing is like, but I feel like I ramble a lot.
Oh, it's
So
fine. No, it's
please, like,
fine. Yeah, I wasn't too worried about that. No.
okay.
No, I wasn't. I mean, sometimes I go on my own little tangents here. So,
No, you're
oh,
great.
yeah, next one. I decided I'm gonna go indie here. The indie dance rock song "Take Me Out" by Franz Ferdinand. Boy, did that song had me in a chokehold back in 2004. Yeah, this is before Guitar Hero, made that song for what it is. It gave it new life like a couple years later. But God, this was like the era of the indie dance rock bands like, Panic at the Disco, Arctic Monkeys. They're like Franz Ferdinand was a band from the UK. They were named after like the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, who was murdered in Hungary after which ignited World War One. And the thing is, when I think of Franz Ferdinand, I'm not thinking about the Archduke that his murder. Uh, but instead, I think of that band. And um, interestingly enough, I saw them perform. They were a double headlining act with Death Cab for Cutie at the Aragon, which is a very interesting act between those two because I'm like they couldn't be any more apart because like Franz Ferdinand came in like you could tell the energy was so high, but then
Yeah.
when Death Cab came in it just felt so chill and
Mhm.
very I don't know. I wasn't a fan of Death Cab. I mean that was like right after the Plans album came out, and which is a great album. I really enjoy it to this day, but it just felt so misaligned. A very curious double headlining act, but gosh, I mean, "Take Me Out" is a song that just gets stuck into your head. That hypnotic beat and that guitar riff and yeah. Do you have any thoughts about growing up to that song, "Take Me Out"? Was it a song that was constantly in your uh playing in your Apple iPod?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. I have so many stories about my affinity to Franz Ferdinand. Um, it's so funny. I feel like this band was like my entree to indie music and like indie rock
Yeah,
as
same.
like yeah, as like a 13-year-old, this is a crazy story. But like actually like I'm gonna tell it and then everyone who's listening is gonna be like, it's not crazy. But so I did summer camp every year during high school. And one of the like units was like music.
Hmm.
And so like during the day we would have like all of these like workshops and stuff in between like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And one of the units was music, and then one of the camp counselors was like, oh, I'm just going to introduce you all to like new music.
Hmm.
So he just literally played his iPod for us.
Mm.
And yeah, this was like 2002. He like played Franz Ferdinand.
Mm.
All of our 13-year-old minds were blown.
Hmm.
We were like, wow, what is this? Oh my God. And like that's how I got introduced to like the Strokes and
Yeah.
like the Kooks and
Yes.
oh my God, the Yeah Yeah Yeahs.
Yes.
All of these bands that like years and years and years later, I'm like, these are my favorite bands and I love them to death and blah
Hmm.
blah blah. So yeah. It's just so funny to think that like that was my entree to that music.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, the first time I ever heard, I will never forget the first time I heard Take Me Out
Hmm.
was at summer camp when I was 13.
Oh, wow.
And so yeah. I loved them. And then like I got like my little brother really into indie music, and like
Hmm.
he ended up seeing, it's so funny. He's seen Franz Ferdinand live. Like
Mm.
he saw them live with his buddies in Wisconsin. But like by that point I was in college, like he was in
Hmm.
high school. And so I was just like, well, at least someone in the family got to see them. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I still love them till this very day. And um, yeah, I think this is their best song. Let's be honest. Like
Well, easily
they're a great band, but this is their
most
champion song.
recognizable song. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
interesting because around 2004, that was also when I started to shift more into my hipster indie rock era,
There you
throughout
go.
the rest of my remaining years in college. And it's like I was turning away from like, the top 40 pop R&B hip hop era to, listening to them. And God, like, yeah, I was listening to Death Cab for quite a bit too. Yeah, like the Decemberist, um,
Yeah,
uh,
same.
Phoenix. I saw Phoenix like well before they became famous. Like they were playing at the Double Door, which was like
Cool.
phenomenal, which was such a great experience. And so, yeah, like that was the era that I started to grow up in. But I give Franz Ferdinand credit for kind of like jump starting me back into the rock era. And
Yeah.
so the last one on my list, last but
Wow.
not least,
Mhm.
I debated on this like for a while because I could have put Rolling in the Deep by Adele. Like this, if I put that, that would have made a lot of sense because I mean, I remembered where I was. I remembered how hypnotic that song was, and to this day, it is such an enduring song. But I chose Hometown Glory. This came from her debut album 19 in 2008. So many songs to choose from with Adele, like over the years. And this song hits on so many levels for me, like because of how nostalgic the song is. Like I think over the years, this song has really grown onto me, and especially more recently when I think about, the passings, of the people in my life, and also like revisiting places that I haven't been to in a long time, or, going back to places like that don't exist anymore, and trying to, sit with it. Um,
Yeah.
it's an interesting song because Hometown Glory it kind of reminds me of like the earlier version of when we were young. When we were young had me like really emotional when I heard that song for the first couple of times, and then even more
Wait, say
emotional.
more. Who by who?
Adele.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, with Adele. And when I saw Adele perform in Vegas, she performed when we were young. I mean, God, I don't think there was a dry eye in that moment. But
Yeah.
when I think of Hometown Glory, this was probably like this was the predecessor to that song, in my opinion. But what I think is very interesting about it is that Adele was a teenager when she wrote this song, and this is a song that you write when you're in your late 30s or early 40s, when you've
Mm,
lived a life. She was just barely living a life by that point, but um she was only 19 when the song came out. And this was part of her debut. Like she was coming in at a time where her fellow Brit peers, Amy Winehouse, Lily Allen, Duffy, were also emerging. And and here comes Adele, a very shy, very quiet, introverted person, and a person who was terribly, famously terrified of being up on stage. And
mm.
when I think about that song, it's a very nostalgic hit. It takes me back to a very raw place every time I hear it. And I learned that she wrote that song, like talking about her experiences, like protesting against the Iraq War as a teenager, and trying to beg her mom to come back to London. And I was like, wow, this is such a mature song for a person who was already at that age. And and since then, Adele has become a global icon, a beloved treasure, and really um one of the most sought after voices, like especially as a millennial. I think she's been just like she hits on different genres. She could hit with the boomer crowd, she can move the Gen Z, even Gen Alpha crowd. Um she hits on all cylinders. But yeah, were you a big fan of Adele? Like was that first album, did that come up for you, or was it like the 21 album where Rolling in the Deep uh was, like introducing her to a much wider audience, became a household name?
Yeah, I never I will admit I never got really into Adele. I think because I missed that moment. I feel like so 2008 when like Adele became like really big, I like had just started college. I was like really getting into like the indie music scene, or rather like getting very like deep into the indie music scene. Um, and like I honestly like feel like I didn't get into Adele until years later, like a
Hmm.
couple years later,
Hmm.
maybe like 2, 3 years later.
Hmm.
Um, but then was like very appreciative of her talent and her
Hmm.
skill and her craft, and was just like very impressed by
Hmm.
her work. Um, and so, and then like realizing then, like years and years later, that like, oh, she was like a contemporary of mine. Like,
Hmm.
I'm, I don't mean to say that like I'm
Hmm.
like someone who
Hmm.
was like, oh, I was wanted to be a pop icon.
Hmm.
No, I just like I like singing as like a hobby,
Hmm.
um, and like I love doing karaoke again as like a pastime and a recreation.
Hmm.
I'm again, like in my mid 30s, I'm not trying to be like a singer or anything or like a pop icon, but yeah, I have like singers that I admire, and like Adele is certainly one of them.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I think like looking back in retrospect, I'm like we're close in age. Like
Hmm.
she hearing you like share more about her history and about
Hmm.
her like
Hmm.
journey as a performer. Yeah, I don't know, like I feel for her, and I
Hmm.
feel like yeah, I I've always really loved her music.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, I felt like I couldn't end this list without having an Adele song, because I feel like she
absolutely.
has been such an enduring voice for the past 25 years. Like I
Hmm.
don't think there's been a voice like that in quite some time, or at least
Yeah.
currently speaking. And yeah, I mean, she's also the person who keeps people waiting too. I mean, she'll disappear for a couple of years and reemerge. And
Mm.
it's kind of funny because her last album was released like nearly 5 years ago, which I can't even believe it's been that long. But when I saw her in Vegas like a few years ago, I it was such a beautiful, beautiful experience. Like there was one part when when the song "Set Fire to the Rain" came on, like the stage was like you could see the rain coming down, and then there's a piano, like, and then there's a fire, the flames that were lighting up the piano, and you could see the piano like falling apart, and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like how many pianos does she have, for this tour? For this
Yeah,
residency, but I mean the venue, the sound, the AV, I mean, it was such a great experience. I mean, like this is not a stadium we're talking about. This is just a small 5,000 seat theater,
that's
which
cool.
was to her liking, and those tickets were in high demand. I know I paid an arm and a leg and flying over to Vegas to have that experience, but yeah, but yeah, and more power to her. So there's some artists that I haven't even brought up, like Aaliyah, Janelle Monáe, Lenny Kravitz, Maya, Mariah Carey. Surprisingly, I know that some of my friends are going to be shocked that I didn't include her on there. Harry Styles, "Adore You" is really one of my favorite songs, and I hate the fact that I had to leave that one out. Um, yeah, and I know my friend Jung's gonna be like very disappointed in me about that, because they are a huge Harry Styles fan. But
Yeah.
The Weekend, and also like apologies to my Latin music listening friends. I would have loved to have put Shakira on there. I would have loved to put Bad Bunny or Karol G. Sorry about that. I really apologize for this. Don't hate me.
Well,
I
and I
promise you.
wonder, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm wondering if, like, for me, when I make these lists,
Uh-huh,
like for myself and like
uh-huh,
playlists for
uh-huh,
myself, I exclude the people who I'm like, your whole thing is
uh-huh.
so good that I have to exclude you.
Yeah, I mean, there's also like you can't really pick one. I mean, I might have to put them on an album. Like Mariah Carey's gonna have to be on there. Aaliyah's third album, the Red album, has to be on there for me because I have a lot of things to say about it.
Mhm.
Um, Shakira, I mean, as much as I hate "Hips Don't Lie," the Waka Waka song, and "Underneath Your Clothes," there's some bangers between some of these albums, and I'm like, yeah, there could be an album on there. I'll have to figure that out. That's gonna be my own, rabbit hole. Um, no MIA, for many reasons because the way
Aw.
she's been, I would have put her on there, but yeah, she's been disappointing me a lot.
Sure.
Radiohead, that would have been typically been on there, but that might be
Mm.
more of a 90s thing, but also because Tom York is kind of a douche. But
Yep.
anyways, um
Yep. I'm with you.
yeah, so I want to talk about maybe some of your favorites that we haven't even talked about. Some of the songs that or artists that have come out during that particular time that really stood out to you in your own awakening, your own reckoning.
Yeah, I feel like I in preparation for this conversation, I really honed in on like your selections.
Hmm.
And so I was like, oh, let me be very responsive to like what Randy has provided and like what my relationship is to these songs. And I think like even in us like our conversations and preparing for this recording, I was like, oh, there are some things that I completely agree with you. These are top 25 songs of the century. And then there were some things that like I absolutely was like, that wouldn't be my choice. And of course we've talked about it. But yeah, it made me think about how like these kinds of lists are personally very challenging for me. Like
Hmm.
I almost need to do because what ends up happening for me is I make very niche playlists.
Hmm.
And so I end up having yeah, I end up having playlists that are like oh, this is my top 25 of this genre. This is my
Mm-hmm.
top 25 of this genre, et
Mm-hmm.
cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's just too hard. It's
It
just too
is.
hard. Yeah. And I give you a lot of credit because like you did your due diligence and like you did your research and you did your historical archiving. Um and I I think it would take me a lot of time to get there. Yeah.
I couldn't tell you how many times I kept having to pull the song out. Like if I pull out one song, then I start pulling out another five songs. And it's like
Yeah.
it was kind of like my own hellish nightmare that I was creating for myself. And I mean, when I get to the 90s, I don't know if I could do that for just one list. That might
Yeah.
have to be a genre.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. I'm not gonna torture myself quite yet. But
Yeah.
soon I'll have to like figure that out. But yeah, like what artists or what singers or what songs have we not talked about that are favorites of yours that you want to give light to?
Yeah, I would say it's 25 years. I think about I hate to sound cliche,
Hmm.
but and and the reason I'm saying that is because he's so in the zeitgeist at the moment
Hmm.
and like very much like on the radar, but
Hmm.
like Jeff Buckley.
Oh
Um
wow. Wow.
yeah, and so okay, how do I say this without
Hmm.
sounding pretentious and
Hmm.
like weird?
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
yeah, so I feel working backwards,
Hmm.
there's this new documentary film that came out recently, like
Hmm.
just this past year,
Hmm.
about Jeff Buckley.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
it's this beautiful documentary about his like rise to fame and like him dying very young,
Yeah.
and carrying the legacy of his father, who was like this like folk artist, who he wasn't very close with him, but um he was like attached to him in the world of music as like, oh, your dad was so talented and now you're exhibiting all this talent, and so we have a lot of like hopes for you in
Hmm.
the culture. And then he like died very
Hmm.
similarly to his
Hmm.
father.
Hmm.
um and then before he died, he like produced this really beautiful, incredible album that has like accumulated over the decades this cult like popularity,
Hmm.
and so like I have, so this album Grace by Jeff Buckley, like
Hmm.
I have it on vinyl, I have it on CD. I when I took guitar lessons as a teen, I learned one of the songs from the album
Hmm.
on guitar. Like, yeah, this is just like one of those performers. He had an affinity for like classical Indian music, and
Hmm.
like I grew up listening to classical Indian music as like child of Indian immigrants. And so
Hmm.
there's
Hmm.
all of these like connections and affinities and stuff where I'm like, oh, I love this artist. Um and yeah, all of a sudden now, like decades later, there's this reemergence of like interest in his work and interest in his legacy and artistry, particularly around this like new documentary film
Hmm.
about him. And so I'm feeling a lot of feelings around like,
Hmm.
I don't know, like protectiveness around like
Yeah.
his legacy, but
Well,
also
yeah.
like I want
Yeah.
people to know about his music because it's really
Well,
good.
yeah, it's not uncommon too. I mean, we've seen that with
Yeah,
Selena over the years. We've seen that with Amy Winehouse. We've seen that with Elliott Smith, another artist that now that you bring up Jeff Buckley died like in the late 90s. But
yeah,
I also think of Elliott Smith. I mean, he died very
yeah,
tragically, through suicide. And like his music is also like oftentimes forgotten, or at least on the mainstream level, but among his hardcore fans, I mean, like he's
yeah,
still very much celebrated. But it's like there are certain artists like, wow, like man, I mean, Jeff Buckley only had like one album that was released during his lifetime, and Amy Winehouse only had two albums. So it really tells you like yeah, there's like we mourn not only the music that they left us behind, like the little music that they gave us, but also like what could have been, like what we could have
Yes.
seen, over like the next 10, 20 years of their career, to see that happen like well before they even hit their prime. It's a tragedy. It's hard to, see that. But also as a young person that grew up listening to a particular artist like that, like Aaliyah for me was like my first celebrity death that really affected me as an 18-year-old. And I
Oh,
got her album, which I'll talk about next time. I got her album like right before she passed away. And I thought about like this is the person who I really grew up listening to in high school.
yeah.
Part of junior high to high school, and I was like, wow, and this is like a part of my childhood that just died with me, I guess. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like it's kind of hard because as some of our artists are getting older, at least it is good to know that they have at least accomplished so much in their career.
Yeah.
But but for young artists, it's really hard, especially when they were around our age growing up. It's really hard to process like this could really happen in
Yeah.
and what they left behind. But yeah, thank you for shouting out Jeff Buckley and any other, other songs or any um artist that comes up for you like in this period.
Yeah, I mean, I think of Jeff Buckley. I think of um, I'm trying to think of underrated people because where my mind is at right now, I'm thinking of like all of the people who've like maybe given like too much credit who
Oh
are
yeah.
still alive.
Justin
Yeah,
Timberlake.
yeah. Like thinking about yeah, people like that, and so I'm like, who
Taylor Swift.
like who has not been given their oh you know what I think of I think a lot about the Mars Volta.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Mars
dude,
Volta. Wow, that's a good name. That's a good name.
I
I
think
did not
about
think
them
about
all
that.
the time.
Hmm.
I think about Cedric and Omar, the two
Hmm.
lead guys who
Hmm.
are like the masterminds behind not only Mars Volta but uh what it oh, at the drive-in. That's like they did a side project.
Hmm.
I don't know. It wasn't very different from
Hmm.
Mars Volta, but it was them, and they did this other side project called At the Drive-In.
Hmm.
Anyway, really talented lyricists, really talented instrumentalists, really talented composers, really talented vocalists.
Hmm.
I have almost all of their work on vinyl. I have like some of their stuff on CD. I've seen them live a couple times.
Hmm.
These are two Latine musicians who, yeah, have just done like really complex, beautiful, incredible work over the decades. And because their music is like avant-garde, experimental, a little bit weird, non-commercial, and like I think that they have never signed with a major record label. I think they've been independent all these years. They I think um have not gotten the like they certainly have like a cult following
Hmm.
because like how would I this little girl from the Midwest like find out about them otherwise like
Yeah.
like they certainly have a following and like yeah they came to the Aragon Ballroom in 2007 when I was like an 18-year-old girl.
Mm-hmm.
I saw them and yeah, it was life changing. Like they're so talented and they're so incredible. I listen to their music till this day. Um, yeah. And they have like a interesting history also with the industry. They've been very anti like capitalist all these
Hmm.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's my plug.
Thank you for bringing it all together. And as we conclude, like, what does it mean to like relive, these songs of the yesteryears, 26 years now? Like, how does it make you feel? Like, when you go back into your early 2000s as a teenager and how you view these songs now as an adult. How does it feel to you, like listening and thinking about them? Are they very relevant still to your life, or are some of these songs kind of like, yeah, well, it was great for its time. I've grown out of it. I don't connect to it anymore.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's definitely a mix. I think that there are definitely songs where I'm like, "Oh, I feel so wow, what a great memory." And then there are other songs where I was like, "I can let it go. It's okay." So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I also want to say, thank you so much for this, wonderful Kiki, wonderful like deep dive that we've been having, the last
Mhm.
for the part one and then for part two. It's like I didn't realize how long we would be talking about this. I'm like, wow, this it's like I was like, can I keep a top 25 conversation in 2 hours? And I'm like, yeah, probably unlikely. But you know what? I really, really enjoyed this conversation, and I really hope that people think about your own top 25, the songs that really stood out to you. I mean, it's it's really wild to me that we're like 25, 26 years into the century already. And yeah, it's pretty wild when I think back about, how the songs that we had listened to growing up are like now considered oldies to the young Gen Zs, to the current Gen Alphas that are millennial counterparts of birth. So it is it's a very disorienting time. But I'm also like I hope that the artists that we listen to, the songs, will carry through, into our sunset years, and that it like continues to resonate with younger people, younger generations. And yeah, I really hope that you really enjoyed this conversation. It's the first of my kind, and I'm so glad to have you on, Anjali, and I really hope that we get to do more of uh these fun topics.
Yeah, this was a pleasure. Thank you so much. Happy to be back if and when you will have me. So, thank you so much.